Hey guys, and welcome back. This time, however, I got a request. And this request was to show off different builds that can be gotten throughout Dark Souls and to show how to optimize them. Now, before I get into this, keep in mind, I am not the best at these kind of builds in this game. Usually, I wear a lot of heavy armor, and usually I'm not able to flip like this. However, I will be going over all of these to the best of my ability, so please bear with me. Now, the first build I thought I would do is the light armor build. A build that can fast roll and flip, and usually focuses on parrying and riposting. Now, what is essential for a light build? Well, and ignore all the stats that I currently have, you're going to want 40 dexterity at the very least, because 40 dexterity is going to allow you to do the most amount of damage with dex weapons, which are very good for light builds. Now, the reason why they are the best for light builds is because they're not heavy, so you can still roll, and usually light weapons have a lot of critical damage. Now let's go over some weapons that are very good for dex builds. First, we have the Uchigatana. You can see here that it scales B with dexterity, which is pretty good, and nothing with strength, which kind of sucks, but you can also see that it causes bleed. Now this is very powerful, because bleed builds up even when you're hitting an opponent's shield. So the Uchigatana can be very powerful, and it also has a fun moveset that people usually don't look for. So for instance, it's our light attack, that's our strength attack, and then for two-handed, we have normal slash, and an overhand slower attack. Now, you can also go with the scimitar. Very interesting moveset. That was our powerful attack. It's very flashy, very dancey. Also, with the scimitar, you have no kick. Instead, you do that. You do a nice little backup, very useful for getting away from enemies, giving yourself a little bit of space. Very nice. Let's talk about another weapon that is very good for dex builds, the Great Scythe. You can see this one also causes bleed, but it scales A with dexterity and E with strength. It has a bit of a strange moveset, acting kind of like a farmer's hoe. However, I find it to be very effective and very fun. Now again, you can see that we stagger here when we don't hit something, and that will not happen when you actually manage to hit something. Okay, let's talk about shields. We have a couple of different choices. I just chose the Caduceus Kite Shield here as kind of a standard shield to have. The Caduceus Kite Shield will obviously allow us to block. This is the same as with any normal shield, the Knight Shield, things like that. The Tower Shield, not the big one you saw here, but the one that has a tower painted on it. And finally, you can use what's called the Parrying Dagger. Or not finally, I'm sorry. You can use what's called the Parrying Dagger. Nice little animation here. Used to parry gives you a much larger parry window. Does not increase critical damage, remember that. However, it gives you an increased time, and you can attack with it. So if you're fighting an enemy with no poison and he or she is about to hit you, you can do a little quick stun. There's one drawback, however. You cannot block with this. NPCs can, like Lautrec can. However, you cannot block with the Parrying Dagger. Unfortunate, but that's usually why you want to keep a shield, and then switch back and parry. Now let's talk about the other thing that we can use. We can also use the Target Shield. I believe I've just described the Target Shield before. Increases a parry window, and you can actually block with it. Though it does not block 100% of physical damage, as you can see here, it only blocks 78%. So you will be taking damage through the shield, but it's powerful because if you're going for a light setup, you can usually roll or flip out of the way of attacks, so you're usually not taking as much damage from blocking. You're not focusing on blocking. Actually, I'd say that for a light armor setup, while blocking is important and you want to have a high physical block shield, it's not the most important thing. The most important thing for a light armor setup is to practice parrying, and practice, and practice, and practice. parrying is extremely important when it comes to a light armor setup. Now, the reason for this is because, obviously, these weapons by themselves are not going to do very much damage, and don't think about the fact that I have a non-upgraded Uchi-Katana here. Just don't worry about that, because I am, this is actually not a dexterity build, so don't worry about that. However, these weapons are not going to do a lot of damage on their own. So they're going to do maybe 200 damage, maybe 138 damage, something like that, which isn't great. So, focusing on parries and ripostes, which are critical damage, which do critical damage when you riposte, can give you a very nice damage boost. Now we're going to talk about our ring setup here for this, and then we're going to talk about what necessarily to wear. Excuse me. 2 rings that I think would be good for a light armor setup. The first would be the dark wood grain ring. Now, for those of you who've been watching my Let's Play, we have not gotten to this part of the game yet. You may recognize this area. We went over there to get the wolf ring, and I had opened this door. So, you're standing here, there's a big old forest, and you're lost. What do? Okay, to get the dark wood grain ring, go straight. Just keep running. Make sure not to walk in any trees, and once you see this building, run towards it. Now, if this is your first time doing this, these people will be hostile to you. So if it's your first time, run in here and talk to the giant cat and enter her covenant. Unless you have a very high level in another covenant, then don't do it. Just kill these guys off. They're not that hard. Now, you're going to talk to her, and then you're going to enter the covenant, and you're going to walk outside, and you're going to wonder what to do next. Well, next thing you're going to do is quit the game and reload. Kind of annoying, but it's necessary. Then when you quit the game and reload, you will see a man standing here who will look like... I wonder if I still have it on me. I don't. Well, there will be a man standing here. His name is Shiva of the East. He's a member of the Forest Hunter Covenant, which you have either just joined or avoided from joining. Avoided joining, sorry. And he has a bodyguard who's a ninja. It is very hard to see him, but I believe he'll be standing roughly right here. He'll be wearing what's called the fog ring, which will make you partially invisible. One way that you can tell that he's there is to just look very briefly at him. Another thing you can do is walk up with a fist and punch around the air until you do like 1 damage to him. And then you can slowly kind of like use almost like an echolocation method to find him. Now, how do you do this? Well, you have to kill Shiva's bodyguard to get the ring. So you can do this one of 2 ways. Shiva's bodyguard has no poise, so he can be knocked around very easily. You can either go up to him and begin punching him until he falls off this cliff, or you can go up and kick him. And again, for PC users, a kick is briefly a brief click of walk forward and attack at the same time. Oops, didn't manage to do it there. So for me, it's W and normal attack at the same time. Now, Shiva will fall off and die. Quit and reload again. I know, it's kind of annoying. And you will find a golden drop here. Pick it up, that's your dark wood grain ring. However, all the NPCs here will be hostile to you again. All the NPC humans, including Shiva of the East. So what's best to do is use a homeward bone and get out and go back to your last bonfire. Then make a run back and rejoin Alvina's Covenant. You may need to pay Oscar, or Oswald, I'm sorry, Oswald the partner, to get back into the Covenant. But other than that, it shouldn't be too bad. I think we'll charge like 50,000 souls, which, I mean, if you're not New Game or New Game Plus, is a lot. But you know, you can usually just spend consumable souls. Okay, now let's talk about what the wood grain ring does. Dark wood grain ring. Normal roll, right? I've already explained to you guys about invincibility frames and how this rolls a certain amount, whereas middle rolls, medium rolls, mid rolls, whatever you want to call them, and fat rolls or heavy rolls have less amounts of invincibility frames. Well, this ring has the most amount of invincibility frames. You can dodge a lot more easily while wearing this ring. However, there's a catch. You have to be under 25% equipment burden in order to use it. So, let's say that you're like, well, you know, I was wearing something kind of heavy like this embraced armor, you know? Okay, and I can only mid-roll. Well, let's talk about another ring that you can use. You can use Havel's Ring. Havel's Ring will boost your maximum equipment burden, and you can see now we're able to flip. Now, I'm going to show you where to get Havel's Ring soon, but I want to discuss the other ring that I had been wearing before we get into that. Okay, let's put that back on. I have been wearing the Wolf Ring. I've already explained to you guys about the Wolf Ring and how it adds 40 poise. And this is very important because light armor, specifically this ninja setup, which I'll also show you where to get that, light armor has very little poise as opposed to heavy armor. So, actually, for instance, this setup, you'll notice, by itself has no poise. We only have 40 poise. So, very interesting that you don't have a lot of poise. So you can take one hit and you'll immediately be staggered. Not very good, so the Wolf Ring can offset that. It doesn't give you a lot of poise, but now you're not being staggered with every hit, and you can be a little bit more lax in your dodging and being hit. You can trade hits now without fear. By the way, trading hits means you give a hit and you take a hit at the same time. Okay, let's talk about one other ring before we finish and I move on to talking about where to get Havel's Ring and things like that. Let's talk about the Hornet Ring. The Hornet Ring will give you bonus critical damage in your attacks. Hold on, I want to equip my Hornet Bone and show this off. Hornet Ring is very good for people who like to backstab and parry, and again, for light armor setups, you want to focus on parrying, so this is very powerful. Oops, I was just over here. Well, now, a Hornet Ring is very powerful, but it's also a double-edged sword, because if you're both flipping and... Yeah, I'm in the right place, I'm sorry. If you're both flipping and using the Hornet Ring, you're probably not going to have a lot of poise. However, if you land a critical attack, I'm sorry guys, I got distracted. If you land a critical attack with it, it's going to do a lot of damage. So here, let's backstab this guy, or you know, just hit him. As you can see, it's not going to do a lot of damage, but it'll get my point across. 192. Okay. Now let's back up. Use the Hornet Ring. 250. Now, if this weapon were upgraded and I had more dexterity, that would be a lot more damage. That'd be a lot of damage. It'd be a big difference. And obviously, it's still a big difference, but you know what I mean. So the Hornet Ring can be powerful, but again, watch. We get staggered with one hit. Let's see if we can dodge this dude's attacks. Like that. Let's actually see if we can roll into one of his attacks. Ah! Oh, he dodged one of them. Okay. So I'm going to cut away and show you guys. You know what? Actually, I'm sorry. I want to show one more thing before we go to showing where you can get Havel's Ring. Okay. One other thing you're going to want to use as a dexterity user, or as a light build, is a bow. Bows can be very powerful in knocking out enemies from range, as well as taking out enemies who have very little poise. For instance, if somebody's running towards you, you can hit them with that. So, you can buy a bow from the Undead Merchant in the Burg that I showed you guys. We bought the Residence Key from him, which we used to free the Mage and the I forget the place is called, the Lower Undead Burg. And I believe you can also buy one, and arrows, from Andre of Astora. You can also buy arrows, by the way, from the Undead Merchant. I'm sorry, I forgot to specify that. Okay, let's just make sure, and then I'll cut ahead to getting Havel's Ring. Alright. Purchase item. Arrows. There you go. And... okay, I guess I was wrong. You cannot buy a bow from Andre of Astora. However, you can definitely buy a short bow from the Undead Merchant. Alright. Well, I will see you guys at where you get Havel's Ring. Welcome back, guys. If you cannot recognize where I am in the Undead Burg directly before the Taurus Demon Boss Room. Now, in order to get Havel's Ring, you're going to want to open this door. It can be accessed with the master key, but otherwise, I'm afraid it is locked from the other side. So you're going to run down here and say, oh yeah, where's my ring, where's my ring, where's my ring? And you're going to look at all these messages, and in your eagerness, you're going to storm past them. And then there's going to be a guy here, who unfortunately I've already killed. But there's going to be a guy here named Havel, and he's going to kill you, I promise. He's hard, and he's tough. The best way to attack him is either backstabbing or parrying. But this is where you get Havel's Ring, and it's a very important ring that I definitely recommend trying for later in the game, when you aren't one shot by this guy, because I've fought him that way before, and it is frustrating. Okay, now let's talk about light armor in itself. There's a couple of different ways that you can, or a couple different setups you can use. I personally, when I'm doing a light armor build, I like the ninja setup, mainly because I really like how it looks. The bandit setup is also a good one. It offers decent protection, whereas the ninja setup does not. And by the way, it's called the Shadow Mask, Shadow Garb, Shadow Leggings, Shadow Gauntlets. The Shadow set offers very little protection. I know another good, really there's any light armor that you can use, or any armor that you can use in conjunction with Havel's Ring, works out pretty well. So for instance, if I wanted to go RP as Lautrec, let's see if we have enough. Okay, we don't. Let's remove the helmet and gauntlets. I know that'll do it. So for instance, if I wanted to roleplay Lautrec, I could. And it's not light armor, but you're still rolling, but one of your ring slots is taken up by Havel's Ring. So you see, it's kind of a trade-off, because at the same time we have 31 poise, but then when we have had that same amount of more poise with the wolf ring, and yes, I know we have 47 now, but we can't flip. Okay, now that's really all I can think to cover, aside from telling you to always upgrade your stuff. If I didn't answer something, feel free to ask in the comments. I mean, I'm totally willing to answer a question. I was no offense to the guy who recommended. I mean, I really appreciate that you gave me feedback, but that guy, he kind of just said that, like, talking about builds, talking about different weapons to use, things like that. And we're definitely going to be getting into those. So I hope that this first part, and there will be more parts, don't worry about it. Actually, I'm sorry, this is the second part. I'm stupid. I hope that this second part was helpful to you guys. And, yeah, I'll see you guys next time. I'm thinking what we're going to do next time is, a magic setup. I don't necessarily have this character set up for magic, so it may be a little bit of a little while. But, I hope you guys appreciate this, and again, if you have questions, feel free to ask, and I'll either reply to you or make a video. So I'll see you guys then.